Good morning or good afternoon. This is the purpose of this video is to introduce you to the cognitive skill of comprehension and just to walk you through the process, using an actual question and looking at a response to that question. Okay, so comprehension, to comprehend something means to understand it. So these sorts of questions are asking you to show your understanding of a source. So understanding about what information is there. Okay. The most important thing, it doesn't matter what you've got to do, is you have to make sure that you are answering the set question. So at the end of the day, it's the question that must be answered. That's what you've got to show your comprehension in and for. Okay. So our first job then in the process is to read the question to be answered. Then we read the source. Okay. So consider source one and identify the causes and effects of Agrippina's actions in relation to her husband Claudius. Your response should include the developments that made Agrippina act the way she did and the consequences of her action. So, what this question's asking you to do then is to essentially identify the reasons why Agrippina acted the way she did and what she did in response to that. It's a cause and effect question. Okay. Now, a couple of key things here. This guide here, your response should include. So obviously that's me saying to you, write about this stuff. Okay. So make sure that we're following the cues in the question. Also, and it's been bolded for you, it points you to which piece of evidence to use. You only use in this question evidence from source one. Don't bring in a quote from source 2 or 3 because it's not relevant, it won't be marked, it won't count towards anything. Just do what the question says. All right, so we've read our question. Then what we need to do is we need to go ahead then and read the source. And when we're reading the source now, we're reading it with the question in mind. So we're reading it in order to identify causes and effects. All right, so here we go. Claudius was angered by Agrippina's actions, of which he was now becoming aware, and called for his son Britannicus, who had purposely been kept out of his sight by her most of the time, for she was doing everything she could to secure the throne for Nero. So here Agrippina's basically been sidelining Claudius's actual son and pushing his adopted son, Nero, into the limelight. Okay? And Claudius was becoming aware of it. He displayed his affection whenever he met the boy. So when he starts seeing Britannicus more, he starts highlighting him and sort of making him and demonstrating that he has a high regard for him, a love for him. Okay. He, Claudius, would not endure her behaviour, Agrippina's, but was preparing to put an end to her power and to declare Britannicus heir to the throne. So Claudius is awake to her and he's now going to act to do something to work against her. So Agrippina's plans to put Nero on the throne are under threat. So Agrippina, learning of this, became alarmed and aimed to stop this by poisoning Claudius. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. But since owing to the great quantity of wine he was forever drinking and his general habits of life, such as all emperors as a rule adopt for their protection, he couldn't easily be harmed. So basically, she wanted to poison him, but it was going to be difficult. Other sources highlight the fact that he actually, like a lot of other wealthy people at the time, had a food taster. So the food taster took a bite of the food. If nothing happened to them, the emperor would then continue to eat. If the food taster fell over and died, there was obviously something going wrong there. Okay. She put it in one of the vegetables called mushrooms. And then she herself ate of the others, but made her husband eat of the one which contained the poison, for it was the largest and finest of them. So she tricked him into eating the poison mushroom by taking some from the same plate herself and being fine. So obviously if I'm eating it, I'm not going to be poisoning myself as well as you. And so the victim of the plot was carried from the banquet, apparently quite overcome by strong drink, a thing that had happened many times before. But during the night, the poison took effect and he passed away without having been able to say or hear a word. So, party continues. Claudius keeps drinking. He's carried out because he's blind drunk, which, according to Cassius Dio, isn't unusual, and he passes away. So, Agrippina has been successful in her plot. Okay, so we've got our key information of the source. We understand what the story of the source is, okay? We now need to reread the set question to look for connections. So what we've got to do here is, and why I've highlighted it, we've got to look for things that made Agrippina act the way she did, what caused her to do it, and then the consequences of her actions, the so what. So I've colour-coded those for us in the source just to make life a bit easier. So what made Agrippina act the way she did? Claudius became aware of what she was trying to do and basically started trying to put Britannicus back at the front of the line and pushing Nero out of the way. And at the same time as that, he was wanting to basically put her back in her place and end the power and influence that he had. So these are the things then that make Agrippina decide to poison Claudius. Okay, so the consequences of this, so because she's threatened and Nero is threatened, she aims to do this by stop it by poisoning Claudius. Okay, and she's even extra tricky in doing that because she eats from the same bowl that contains the poison mushroom, our source and our question, and we've selected the required information, all right, to answer that question, to talk about the causes and the effects, all right. So then what we've got to do is we've got to go ahead and we write our response. So here is our response, our sample response then to that question. I'll put it out there from the start and say that this is not a perfect response by any means, but it shows you a structure that you may want to follow in answering these sorts of questions when you get to have your go. All right, so pretty basic stuff here. It's a standard paragraph response with the topic sentence, supporting evidence, and summary sentence. All right, so the actions of Agrippina towards her husband Claudius were caused by her desire to see her son Nero succeed Claudius on the throne in order to protect the power base she had established in the palace. Okay, so I'm using the words of the question here. Okay, the actions of Agrippina towards her husband Claudius, so I'm relating specifically to this highlighted part of the question, caused by her desire to see her son Nero succeed Claudius on the throne. This is what made Agrippina act the way that she did. All right, to protect the power base she had established in the palace. Okay, so this is the topic sentence and is highlighting what she did and linking my response directly to the question. Agrippina's plotting kept Claudius's natural son Britannicus out of his sight most of the time, which allowed Nero to get more attention from the emperor with a view to him being declared his heir. Source 2. So I'm referencing, well, that should be source 1. Okay, there's a typo. The quote there, I haven't used a huge quote from the source, and I've broken that up and punctuated that appropriately. All right, so when Claudius realised this, it angered him, and he wished to put an end to her power and to declare Britannicus heir to the throne instead. Source 1. This development was an obvious threat to Agrippina and Nero, and as a result, she became alarmed and aimed to stop this by poisoning Claudius. So again, what we've got here is a use of the evidence from the source with some explanation, some relevance, and in setting it up, showing how it helps answers the question. Okay. So this threat to her power leads to her deciding to poison Claudius. She administered the poison to him through some mushrooms at a banquet dinner. Thus, Claudius passed away without having been able to say or hear a word, which ensured Nero's passage to the throne was clear and Agrippina's power was maintained. So just summing up there at the end and tying it back, And again, linking those ideas back to the set question. So once we've written our response, we've finished step 4 in our process, and then we've got our final step 5. And this is the one that we sometimes miss doing in an exam because we're pushed for time. So we have to make time in the time that we devote to a particular question to review the answer. Have I answered the set question, or have I just summarised the source? Okay, and that's the key. We've got to make sure that we answer the set question. So you can look at that and make a decision as to whether or not or how effectively I've done it. As I said to you, it's not a perfect answer by any means, but you've got an idea there on how to structure responses. All right, so you're actually going to apply this process now to another question, and you're going to develop a paragraph response. Okay. One thing that I haven't mentioned that I should stress though is that in the question structure, you've got an indication of how long your response should be. 150 to 180 words. 180 words is 180 words, okay? So we've got to make sure that we're working within those word limits, okay? When we move forward into external exam time in a couple of years, markers won't read past the set word limit. They'll basically literally put their pen down at 180 words, and that would be it. They wouldn't mark anything else that comes from it. They'll just mark what's within the range. That's a skill, and that's something that we'll work on as we move forward. All right. Okay. So have a go now at the practice question that you've been